Other researchers worked with melatonin and serotonin and things like that, but he was the only one that really got into the DMT research. There's other researchers like Dennis McKenna, Terrence McKenna, the late Terrence McKenna, and others, but Dr. Strassman is the main researcher on this.
He did his research when, in the 90s?
He moved to the University of New Mexico in 1984 and spent 11 years doing research there, so until around 1995. So
all of this is pretty recent.
Yeah, it's pretty recent, and it had never been done before. And he has expressed interest in doing more research, which I'm really happy about.
Definitely, because if we can help with end-of-life therapy and things like that through the use of these sacred herbs and plants and things that people have been using for thousands of years, why deny ourselves this? And this is another reason why I'm so against the pharmaceutical company, is I firmly believe that when God created this earth, He created everything that we need. Period. If we have some kind of illness, there's a plan out there that will cure it. We don't need pharmaceutical companies. We don't need fluoride bombs when we feel like crap in the form of Prozac and Zoloft and things like that. What we need is to better understand the earth, better to understand nature, and
better understand each other.
Better understand each other, absolutely.
There was another article out of The Guardian just a day later by a different author entirely that puts it in a little bit better perspective. They said, the psychedelic substance is a drink called ayahuasca. It is extracted from plants that grow in the Holy Land and in the Sinai Peninsula and is still used today by Amazonians in Brazil for their religious rituals. Shannon came up with this theory when reading the Bible. The events described reminded him of the visions he had after trying this drink 15 years ago. So when Moses first encountered God, he was high. Encountering the divine is one of the most powerful experiences associated with high-level ayahuasca inebriation, claimed Shannon. At the burning bush, covered in flames but mysteriously not consumed, there was no miracle, just a drug-induced radical alteration in the state of consciousness of the beholder, that is, Moses. The account of the children of Israel hearing God while camped at Mount Sinai is about a mass drug-taking event, giving a whole new explanation for the reported cloud of smoke that settled on the mountain. Oh, well, I take that back. This wasn't any easier on people at all.
And on that note, I want to quote Joe Rogan for a moment. If you haven't had a psychedelic experience, you're missing out on a big part of what life's about. So I'd like to take a break, and we'll be right back with Dr. Rick Strassman, author of DMT, The Spirit Molecule. This is Truth Frequency with Chris Geo and Socio Student.
I want to get back on 9/11 and other things later, but right now I wanted to talk about DMT, 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 DMT.
Life is a massive mystery, and there's only a few different ways to really crack below the surface of that mystery, and the best way is psychedelics. And the heavier the psychedelic, the better. And the heavier the psychedelic, the better. And the heavier the psychedelic, the better. And the heavier the psychedelic, the better.
It's called dimethyltryptamine. It's produced by your pineal gland. It's actually a gland that's in the center of your brain. You know, when you sleep, during the time you're in heavy REM sleep and right before human death, your brain pumps out heavy doses of dimethyltryptamine. Yet it's one of the most illegal substances in the world. It's more illegal than heroin. It's just as illegal as it is the most illegal substance you could possibly get. Yet it exists in almost every ecosystem. It's in grasses and animals. It's the pineal gland that produces it. Literally is your third eye. No one's dying from psychedelics. All our thoughts on psychedelics are all based on propaganda that we heard about people, going crazy or losing their minds on it. You're not going to go crazy. You're going to go insane. All right, all that stuff is going to remove your ego, and it's going to explain to you what the world is really all about. But it's been documented. There's a great book on it called DMT, The Spirit Molecule, by a doctor named Dr. Rick Strassman, and he did all these clinical studies at the University of New Mexico on it, and literally you are transported into another dimension. I don't mean like you feel like you're in another dimension. I mean like you're in another dimension. Now here's where it gets really crazy.
there's complex geometric patterns moving in synchronous order, pulsating lights with no boundaries, and there's an alien communicating with me, like sort of like a Thai Buddha, except he's made entirely of energy, and there's no like outline to him. He's just one thing, and he's concentrating on it, and he's trying to tell me not to give in to astonishment, not to give in to astonishment, not to give in to astonishment, not to give in to astonishment. And it lasts for about 5 minutes. Everybody in their life, if you live, and you haven't had a heavy psychedelic experience, you've missed out. You've missed out on a huge chunk of what life really is.
You are tapped into the truth frequency with Chris Geo and Socio Student. Coming up right now, we have researcher, clinical psychiatrist, and author of DMT, The Spirit Molecule, and Inner Paths to Outer Space, the one and only Dr. Rick Strassman, rickstrassman.com, and all his work is available, of course, at amazon.com. Prepare to step outside of the tiny box reality and see what's beyond.
I think when we get to a point where we can actually do some of these studies, brain scans of people who are having these experiences, we'll be able to start addressing this explanatory gap in terms of sort of the mechanics of how the brain works versus how it produces these subjective states of feeling and consciousness. And that's the big piece that's missing right now. I think certainly it's possible to take different types of psychoactive drugs that we know have a particular mechanistic function. They interact with a certain receptor in a certain part of the brain, and do brain scans and look at that part of the brain light up after that drug is administered, and then to be able to use subjective questionnaires and feelings to actually begin to start mapping brain states as a function of brain chemistry. That to me is actually a really important goal that no one, I think, has really clearly articulated. But I think we're almost to the point where we could use a library of various types of psychoactive drugs, and coupled with advanced brain imaging techniques, to actually start mapping a sort of cartography between what happens when a particular receptor in a particular brain area is activated, what brain state does that produce, what kind of feeling does that produce. And I think we're not too far away. I think the biggest holdup is sort of social perceptions that, is this something we should do, and should it be funded as a public priority? And to me, that's sort of a no-brainer.
I'm a physician, and I find that for the serious public health issues of our time, that we're impotent. Our medicines are impotent. And with ayahuasca, I had discovered for the first time a medicine worthy of its name, capital M medicine. And as you know, ayahuasca is considered the medicine by many of the indigenous peoples of the South American Amazonian basin, because of its profound ability to transform. And I think one of the most pressing questions about ayahuasca, and I think this is true of all the entheogenic botanicals and even the synthetic materials, is can these medicines not only affect the psychological state of us, but also our bodies? Can we really heal ourselves, our bodies? It was such a profound experience to have been out there in deep space. And I'm not the kind of person that would have expected this kind of experience. I mean, I would have expected, if someone were to tell me you're going to take this drug that's going to launch your consciousness, I would have expected that I would see angels and fairies and not alien life forms. I have no interest in that. That's not part of, I've never liked science fiction. I've never been into any of those kinds of things. It's not part of any sphere of interest. But to be out there with these other life forms, this greater intelligence, was absolutely astonishing.
As far as I know, DMT is astonishingly widely available in plants and animals all around the world, but so far nobody really knows why it's there or what its function is. Rick Strassman made the suggestion that DMT may be produced in the pineal gland. As far as I know, that suggestion still needs to be fully validated. But it's an intriguing suggestion, because if we look at the origins of the pineal gland as an organ of sense, that it was a sense organ, and that in evolutionary older animals it actually has